Hello and welcome to episode 135 of my podcast all about knitting and crochet and my yarn shop here in Wiesbaden, Germany. I'm Kiko and today is March 21st, 2022. Today I'm wearing the Haruni cowl. It's sort of the same pattern as the same designer who designed the Haruni shawl, which I think is one of the most popular patterns on Ravelry. And the designer was she liked the stitch pattern so much that after she designed the shawl, she designed several other pieces with the same pattern. So there's a cowl, there's a crescent shawl, and there's I think one or two more accessories that she designed. So far I've knit the Haruni shawl and I've knit this cowl, but I'm still looking at the other patterns as well because I bought them all in a bundle, so I could knit them all. I used Opal Abo yarn, subscription yarn. So this was a one of a kind at the time, and I'm not quite sure whether, I think the color later, it might have appeared as one of the black dragon colors. I think that's what it was. But I knit it as part of the Musterschlacht, the pattern battle, where everybody knit with the same color, but everybody had to use a different pattern. And the pattern, as I said, the stitch pattern is the same as with the shawl. So the main body of the shawl uses this simple little leaf pattern, and the beginning of the cowl, you just knit this pattern down straight, and then you add the this big lace pattern that's also on the edge of the shawl, and on the cowl you just knit it in the round. But because you increase the number of stitches, it sort of lies round your shoulders nicely. And as with the shawl as well, I put in beads here, and I put beads into the crocheted edge. Yeah, I like the beads in my knitting, so yeah, really happy with this little cowl, and I think it goes nicely with this pullover or tunic rather. It's fairly long. So that was knit with a Rico yarn, Fashion Like Luxury, I think it's called. It's a alpaca mix yarn, and the design, well, it's one of my designs. I never wrote it down, I just knit it up. It's very simple. So there's just a tiny hint of the lace pattern up here. It's a raglan shape, no pattern in the sleeves, and then just this lace pattern in the lower part of the tunic. Yep, very simple, but I like it. I love the color. It's really nice and soft. Of course, it pulls like crazy, and you can see that it's old and much loved and worn, but that's okay. That's what you make the things for. They're for wearing, and that's fine. Yeah, so much for what I'm wearing. Then on to finished objects. I have 3.5 finished objects and 5 new cast-ons. So the last week was a bit crazy, and but I'll show you. I'll start with the socks that were almost done last week. These are the pattern is called Pink Lemonade. I called my project the Grey Lemonade. Forgot to put them on sock blockers, but I don't think it matters. Just a pair of very nice shorty socks. The pattern is a free pattern on Ravelry, so it was a warm-up pattern in last year's Sock Madness, and my sister liked it and she likes shorty socks. I used alpaca sock yarn by Hansa Farm. It's wonderfully soft. The socks are washed, so when I see my sister this afternoon, I can give her the socks and she can start wearing them, and she can let me know how they wear, how they wash, and how the yarn holds up. Yep, so first finished object of the day. Then the second is the biggest finished object for today, and that's the Mealy Vest. I finished this soft grey vest. I used alpaca sock yarn as the main yarn in a black grey, or it's rather a grey and white mix, colour mix. Forgot to bring the yarn. I'll show you when I put it into the blanket. And then I held it double with a brushed alpaca yarn by Hansa Farm, and I used light grey on the main part, and then the edges are all done with black alpaca yarn. And so you can see the sock yarn is the same throughout, but the different look you get from mixing it with light grey and mixing it with black alpaca yarn. And the only thing that was missing from last week was the second button band, and I actually did knit some little buttonholes, but I haven't put any buttons yet because I don't know which buttons to use yet. I'm still calling it a finished object because I can and I will wear it without buttons until I find buttons. If I don't find buttons, then it just stays the way it is. I don't think the buttonholes are very noticeable. So, and even if they are, I don't mind. It's mine and I can wear it any way I like. And I hope to get it washed this week, and then I can wear it next week and I can show you what it looks like on me. Yeah, so that's the Mealy Vest, very nice pattern. My friend who also knit the pattern, who inspired me to knit this, she just started the second one. I'm not sure I'm going to knit a second one, but I'm looking forward to seeing how her second vest comes out. So that's the second finished object. Then the third one is my Decorum hat by Hunter Hammerson. So that's this beautiful hat, and I used this hand-dyed yarn by Mickey that she dyed for me. It's a 6-ply sock yarn and was the perfect weight to use for this pattern. And if you want to see what the hat looks like on my head, I posted it both on my Ravelry page and also on Instagram. You can see the pictures there. And I think Hunter Hammerson promised to send a letter out this week if you want to get the pattern for the mitts, for the wrist warmers that go with this hat. Yeah, so I really tried to be quick with that so that I could publish my picture in time, and I'm really happy with it. It's a very nice little hat. I really like these tiny ears or points that are there. You can push them in if you don't like them, so you have a hat that you can wear with different looks, which I think is fine. I like things that you can sort of change around. So if you push them in, then you get a sort of rounded look. It looks more like a normal hat. Yeah, I'm not into normal so much, so I like it this way. And then the last sort of, that's the half-finished project really, is a pair of baby shoes, and that's also a new cast on. So I started these last week because a friend of mine had a baby and I wanted to give her just a tiny little present, and I thought you can always use socks or baby shoes. But I think they came out a little too small because she already has the baby. I'm not quite sure when I can get the present to her. So I think I'm going to knit another pair a little bigger and probably in a different color just to mix things up. And we'll give that to her. And maybe I'll even make another pair because they knit up really quickly. The pattern is out of this book by Tanja Steinbach, who's a famous German knitwear designer. And when I bought the book, that was the main project that I wanted to do. In the book, they look like this, so it's just with one color, so the pattern comes out a bit clearer. And then there's this little picot edge crocheted on the cast-on edge. I haven't done that yet. I might do it, but I may not do it. I think it looks quite nice the way it looks now because of the long color repeat in the yarn. They came out completely opposite. So I could knit another pair with the same yarn, and I could have two the same, but I'd have to knit I would have to knit them in the same size so I can mix and match. I think I'll just leave them the way they are and knit the bigger size with the other yarn. We'll see. This is leftover yarn. I have lots and lots of leftover yarn, so you'll probably see next week what colour I've picked. So that's all the finished objects for today, quite a few. But as I said, even more new cast-ons. One of them you've seen. I'll continue with my socks as usual. The first two pairs are not new cast-ons. The next two pairs are. I continued knitting on my 24-day socks by Emma Potter from the Potter and Bloom podcast. Just added the rounds that I still needed in the leg and then wanted to knit the heel. Never got around to doing that. I'll talk about that in a moment, why I couldn't do that. But the leg is finished. I'm headed for the toe, for the heel, and then I still have to knit the foot before I can head towards the toe. But that's a 24-day socks by Emma Potter with the opal yarn for the colourful yarn, and the black yarn is the same alpaca sock yarn by Hansa Farm that I used for the grey socks. And that's why my sister can have her socks. I don't need them as a sample in the shop because I have my socks, and you can feel with the toe and the heel from the first sock, you can already feel how soft that is. Then the second sock I am showing you today are the cat socks that I forgot to show last week. I don't even think I knitted on them this last week, but as I didn't show you the progress last week, I'll show it today. So I finished the leg. They're fairly long because my nephew is quite tall now, and started the foot. I will knit about half the foot in this color, which is part of the Africa series by Opal, and I'll do the other half in black yarn and then embroider black ears and embroider eyes and nose for a cat, and then these will be cat socks for him. Yeah, so that's that. And then the next sock that I'm going to show you, that was quite a surprise because this is the first round of the Sock Madness this year. And last week I showed you the socks that I knit to qualify for the Sock Madness, and I thought that the moderators would need some more time to get everybody into a team and then send out the new pattern, but they were really fast. So the qualification ended on Wednesday, and I think on Thursday or Friday, I knew what team I was in. I'm in Team W, so that's Team Wagner, because this year all the teams are named for composers. And on Friday afternoon, the pattern dropped. So that was really quick. I was quite happy that the pattern dropped that quickly because I went away for the weekend, and if the pattern hadn't dropped yet, I probably would have taken a whole big bag of different yarns and beads. I already knew that we needed beads, so I could choose when the pattern dropped. But the pattern dropped before I left, so I chose another color from the series Africa. This is a very beautiful color, and I had beads this color, so I thought they go together really nicely. I didn't need a lot of the beads. And this is the first sock. The pattern is called Ipomoea. Not quite sure how to pronounce that, but I know it's the name for a flower. And the designer is called Anna Shuravleva. I think that's what you pronounce it. And she designed these beautiful socks. I think this is a really beautiful pattern. It's not too complicated. It has some stitches that are wrapped, some wrapped stitches up here. The beads sort of hide in between the wraps. I will make sure to get a picture that show that I actually put all the beads in. Then there's this beautiful leaf pattern, and then the rest of the sock is fairly simple. I knit the minimum number of rows, so this sock is now too big for me, and I'm still debating whether to later undo the toe and knit them for myself, or maybe I'll give them to a friend if they fit her the way they are. And this is the other side. It's the same pattern, but here you see this thread running through. That was part of the requirement for the Sock Madness, because I flip the yarn every 5 rounds, so it means the moderators have an easy time counting the rows that I knit. Yeah, and it goes in between those sleeves. So that's the first sock. And this is how far I knit the second one. So I've knit through the pattern. I've already finished the whole chart. I now need to repeat the last round of the chart a certain number of times for the minimum requirement for the sock madness. I have to do a few more of those repeats. I was just too tired last night. Then I knit the heel and I knit the whole long foot and the toe, and then I'm done. I will have to get a move on. I hope to finish them today. I may not manage to do that, but I'm sure I will finish them tomorrow at the latest. I checked just before I started recording, and when I checked, 17 people on my team had already finished their socks. That means that 23 spots remain, because 40, the quickest 40 of each team go on to round 2. So I'm not that late, but I don't want to push my luck. I don't know how fast my other team members are going to knit from now on. So, but 17 have already finished. That's fairly quickly. There are some teams where nobody has finished yet, or just one person. So I actually did end up on a fairly quick team, which is what I wanted. So that's fine. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying I need to hurry up with the second sock. But I love the pattern. I think it's very beautiful. I love the yarn. So that's why I'm thinking of keeping them. So that helps in focusing, concentrating on these socks. And then the last sock that I cast on, I also cast that on Friday. And the reason I did is, as I said, I was going away for the weekend, and I knew that both car rides we would be driving in the dark for part of the journey. And in the dark means I can't knit anything that I have to look at. I don't want to use a lamp because I don't want to distract my husband who's driving. So I picked a yarn. This is a rainforest color by Opal that I had looked at for a long time, and I really like it. And I like the yarn the way it looks like this, but I like it even better when it's knit up. And I had seen pictures of the yarn knit up, and I wanted to do that too. So I just cast on for a very simple sock, and I just did some straight stockinette knitting on the way to and back. And I knit about half of it the way where we were going, and then the other half on the way back. And I decided this is just going to be a really simple sock with a contrast color contrast color toe, and an afterthought heel also in a contrasting color. So I'm not quite sure how much longer to knit. I was thinking last night that maybe I might just do leg warmers or wrist warmers instead of making a sock out of it. I'm not too sure. Right now I prefer the socks, so I think that's what this is going to be. But this has no priority. It was just that I had something to knit while it was dark. So that's what I did. So that was another new cast on. Then little project with sock yarn, another new cast on. Last week I said that I was thinking of making something with the new beauty yarn by Opal. This is the softer yarn that sort of treats your skin while you knit and while you wear it. And the idea that I had is to combine it with this yarn and then knit the gnome pullover by Sarah Shearer. The pattern is called Go Big or Go Gnome, and I've been planning on knitting that with different yarn. I knit 2 hats as gauge swatches and then decided against that yarn. And the pattern is written for sock weight yarn. So this is my new idea to make that pullover. And again, I decided to knit a hat, not only as a gauge swatch, but also to see whether the colors work out, because those 2 colors are not a high contrast in some places, because in some places this yarn is fairly light. So I was a bit worried there wouldn't be enough contrast. And also I do think those 2 colors look really nicely together, but I wanted to make sure I like the way they look before I start a whole big pullover. So another gnome hat. That's the accompanying pattern to Go Big or Go Gnome pullover. Is called the Go Big or Go Gnome hat. And I knit it twice with thick yarn, and now I'm knitting it in fingering weight yarn for the first time, which is the way the pattern is written. The gauge is more the gauge that I want for a pullover. Normally I would knit a hat with a tighter gauge, but that's the way it is. If I want this to be my gauge swatch for the pullover, I needed to use this slightly bigger needle, but also I wanted to see what the colors look like. And I wasn't sure whether I would have enough of that color. I found out last Friday that I can actually order some more of that color, so I don't have to worry. But I didn't know that when I started the hat, which is why I did the brim in the darker color, and then I started the gnomes. And I must say that even though in some places there isn't a big contrast with those two blue yarns, I don't really mind, because there are some other places where there is a strong contrast, and I think overall you can see that these are supposed to be gnome bodies. These are the beards, and I really like the light blue beards. And then I just started on the hat. Oops, make sure I don't lose the stitches. And I really like this yarn. So I like the color from the very beginning, but now that I'm knitting it up and I'm seeing all the different colors that are in there, I really like it. And I also like the combination of the pink and the purple and the red with the blue, and I think these are going to be really nice gnomes, and I am pretty sure I'm going to knit the pullover as soon as the hat is done. And I'm probably going to knit a gnome as well out of these colors, because I haven't knit a March gnome yet, so that's on my to-do list as well. So that was another new cast on. Then coming back to a project that you've seen before, I continue knitting on my rainbow cardie, which is still quite black. Not a lot happened, but I hope you can see that the sleeve got a bit longer, and I started the decreases. So I'm doing some decreases on my sleeve. I think they're visible right here. I want to add a few more decreases, and then I will put the stitches on some waste yarn to start the second sleeve, and then leave the stitches for the very end when I finished with the colourful collar, and then I can see if I want to put some more colours in the sleeve. So not much happened, but at least something. And deciding on when to start the decreases is always something that it's not too easy. So I keep trying it on, keep knitting and thinking about it. So once I've made the decision, this is where the decreases started, I sort of relax, and then it's just easy knitting again. So then I did not knit on the Raglano pullover, so that had to wait, but hopefully this week. And then I have another new cast on that I didn't really plan for. So most of the cast ons I sort of planned and knit for a reason, but this is something that came very out of the blue, and it's I have a friend who calls these projects the in-between interference projects, and that's because a friend of mine wanted to give a friend of hers, who I also know, a pair of mittens, because she complained of cold hands a lot. But she didn't want to knit them, even though she can knit, and she asked me if I would knit them for her. And so I started knitting mitts, and when I show you the colors, you can see they are not for me, because brown is one of the colors I never wear. I do like the dark red, but it's quite dark. But these are the colors that she asked for. She wanted a dark red and a brown, and I decided to just make some very simple garter stitch mitts, just to knit 2 rows one color, knit 2 rows the other color, and then I'll knit the circumference of her arm and then sew it together so that a bit stays open for the thumb. She asked for a thumb opening, but she didn't want the knitted thumb. So I decided to just do it in a really simple way. It's very soft and warm yarn, but it's the machine washable alpaca by Hansa Farm, so she can put it in the wool wash in her machine, and I hope she's going to like them. Oh, that's the wrong side, so the colours sort of go, they mix up a bit more, and this is the right side where you have the lines a bit clearer. Yeah, so that's the in-between project that I didn't plan, but as it's something little, I said I can do that. What else? I did a little crochet on the little something I want to put on my stove in the kitchen. So this is what I'm aiming for, and I need 7 more of these squares, and all I managed to do is the 7 beginnings. So the middle part has 4 rounds in the same color. It's these white rounds and here the blue rounds, and then it's 1 round every color until the very edge, and then the last 2 rounds are in the same color again. So yeah, that's a good start, I think. Glad I got that done so I can continue crocheting those here and there. I have another crochet project, and that's the blanket Stomp, and I did get a bit of work on that done during the weekend when I needed a break from knitting the sock. I really wanted to knit as much of the sock as possible, but at some point my hands were just hurting too much and I knew they needed a different movement, so I thought crochet is the right thing to do. So this is the crochet blanket Stomp. So it's going to show a big dinosaur when it's done, and now you can see the first foot really clearly. This leaf or whatever is finished. This is the one of the dinosaur's feet, and then here this is the dinosaur's bottom, which is going into the belly, and this is the second foot, and it looks different because I think the dinosaur is sort of standing on this one, but has this one lifted as if it was walking. So the toes that show on the side here, I think they will show on top of the foot with the second one. And then there's another leaf or plant or whatever on this side. Yeah, so this grew quite a bit. I still love the pattern. I still really enjoy the technique. I think I got the squares mixed up at some point where I should have changed the direction. Like you have to go through one of those holes with the crochet hook. You only crochet into the same color all the time, but sometimes you pull the stitch through one of those squares so that it's the interlocking, that's the interlocking bit of the interlocking crochet. And I think I mixed it up once, but I don't think it shows so much, and I only realized after I'd done 2 rows on top, and I didn't want to undo it just for one little square. And then once I was on top of that, I could sort of get it right the next row, so it's not a mistake that would have carried up, so I thought that was okay. So this is the wrong side. You can still see the pattern, but it does look different. It's not like with double knitting where it looks the same, but you can see all those straight lines on this. They are these spiky lines on the back side, and also these are just little dots on the dinosaur's body, and on this side these are little blue squares, and on this side they are colorful crosses. So I think it's quite funny the way it looks, and I think the wrong side will be interesting and nice to look at too. So that's always nice, so the kit doesn't have to worry about showing the right side. And I know from the blankets that the kids have been using so far, they don't care about right and wrong side anyway. They just care about being nice and warm and cuddly. Yeah, so that's the blanket Stomp, and that brings me to the knit alongs, but I'm only going to show you one because I must admit I did not knit on my Wolkig. I really do want to get this done, and I sort of promised myself that once the Sock Madness sock is done this week, I will make an effort to knit on the Wolkig, but I did knit on my star cushion asterisk, and this is what I have so far. So it's the glitter yarn by Rico. It's a fairly old yarn. I don't think you can still get it, but I don't know. And I started off on these double pointed needles, but then I put it onto the circular needle. I did that a little too early, so right now the knitting is a bit uncomfortable because I have to push the stitches a lot. So with the second part that I will have to knit, I will make sure to stay on the double points a little longer, but that's okay. And I have now reached the size of the star that I did for the tutorial video, which I still haven't translated into English, but I will do that, I promise. But I will continue to knit on that because I want this to be sort of the grown-up version of the star cushion. And and my sister said she really wants it in her house and not in her car, but that's okay, I don't mind. She can have it living in her living room, and if she does take a trip in her car, she can take it with her if she wants to. We'll see about that. Yeah, so that's the knit along, and then that's all I had to show you today. All the new cast-ons, all the finished projects. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.